Life's a journey, a God in disguise. And perhaps we walk out with last high prize. In this podcast realm, we're diving deep, unraveling the threads that the universe keeps. A name of life, we explore, unfold the dreams, empower minds, ignite those inner beams. Voices rise, tales of courage and strife. Welcome to the journey, the game of life. Name of life, we explore, unfold the dreams, empower minds, ignite those inner beams. Voices rise, tales of courage and strife. Welcome to the journey, the game of life.
Family, welcome in. We have an amazing show today, amazing conversation for you, and I'm very excited about it. But before we go any further, I want to take a quick step back, a quick recap. And the last time we were here, we had talked about planning for the next 5 to 10 years. More specifically, we had talked about understanding that the old way of building wealth traditionally is dying, frankly. We talked about how AI is really here to take over, right? It's not just here, but it is already being implemented and is going to have a huge effect on the economic class of America. So, or classes, should I say. So with that being said, what are we going to do? Right? What is going to replace that old system and what is going to be the new system? How do we actually build our wealth moving forward? And so that actually segues perfect for our conversation today. We're talking about how we're going to build wealth through income. And more specifically, we're going to do that through our purpose. And we're going to do that through learning self-mastery, mastering knowledge of self. With that being said, I'm very excited for today's conversation and today's guest. We have Amethyst Goddess. Amethyst, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I'm excited that you are here. But for the family that doesn't know you, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Amethyst Goddess. I am a divine channel, a multi-dimensional channel, which means that I can communicate with those who have crossed over, like your loved ones, your angelic guides, God. Some of you may resonate with Source or Creator. I'm also able to connect with your true self. Some of you may know as your higher self, but really it's your true self, your true nature. So basically with that communication, being a channel is relaying the messages from one aspect of yourself to the current or present aspect or current version that is showing up right now. And that is just the help you go through your journey, go through your evolution process where you're getting that clarity and also that insight so you'll know what to do on your path.
Indeed, and I love that. And one of the things that I thought was interesting for this conversation is you've had some very impressive predictions that have come to pass at this point over the last few years, but especially for 2025. And we had talked about one of the things that have been very impactful was preparation for 2025. And we're seeing this, right? At this point, we're closing out the year of 2025, and preparation has been a major factor. Not only are we seeing it through government shutdowns, but also through benefits being canceled, things of that nature. And at this point, I think it's undeniable that the world is changing. However, I kind of want to key in for you. What are some other predictions maybe that you've made that have come to pass, just so the family has an idea of what all type of things you're hitting on over there?
Well, with channeling, being a medium is another word you may be familiar with. Literally getting information. You're literally a channel to receive that information and transfer it as like feedback or give it out. You're a medium, literally like a medium, like media. I'm doing that. So, I'm gonna put this out there. I've been having these gifts since I was a child. So basically, I'm able to see into the future. Now, just because I may see something doesn't necessarily mean it has to happen. I do want to put this out there. So it's not about for a foreshadow so that we can be in doom and gloom and then our vibration is low and then we have no hope and we feel like what are we even here for? What is the purpose, right? Why are we even existing if all we're going to do is suffer? That's not the point. The point is to empower you so you can have the know-how to avoid or circumvent certain situations, to have a heads up So, oh, okay, that's just a distraction, or I don't want to allow that to siphon my energy, or I'm not going to play into that because you already know. So the information that I relay, the information that I channel is for you to be aware, to be conscious, not in the state of fear, but in the state of love, in the state of strategy of being proactive. So with that being said, I did have several predictions leading up to this point. One of them that was really significant. The time frame was a little bit off, but I'm going to share my screen so you can see. So basically, as you can see right here, September 13, 2024, I did see that there was going to be a government shutdown coming in. And that particular government shutdown, I thought it was going to be earlier on. There was some, how can I say, on the background, there was some energetic things going on that we weren't privy to as far as our normal day-to-day human experience, right? But I kept getting these
Amethyst.
visions that there was going to, I'm sorry?
Real quick, it kind of cut in and out. But you were talking the moment you said you had predicted there would be a shutdown. Um, Go ahead and replay that part. I think when we say certain words, it may trigger certain things to kind of black out,
Uh,
with these
so a
systems.
little
But just go ahead
sensitive.
and,
Okay.
yeah.
So basically, with the government shutdown, I saw that there was some, how can I say, some things going on under the surface that we weren't privy to that caused it to be delayed into this point. But I saw it coming in for this year. And this was back in 2024. And so, what I usually do is provide messages that I may see, whether it's the next day, next week, sometimes in, all the way up until 2030, I actually receive insight. And so, all I do is just relay it, but also I provide tools, resources that say, hey, you ground your energy. You can know what's going on, but you are also prepared by going to the grocery store, by learning how to garden, by being more proactive. Um, Again, these are just some of the things that I've seen and they have come into play. But just being more in the energy of being the leader of your own life, in your own destiny, instead of allowing things to just happen to you. I had some predictions, even as far as Trump being the president. Initially, a lot of people were like kind of swaying back and forth on who was going to win, and I wasn't going based on necessarily the emotions of the people per se, but the energy spoke to me through meditation on what to be mindful of. So I don't just give you information for you to just be in doom and gloom, but also preparedness, the plan of action that you should set up for your life, so things are not just happening to you. And seeing that you are the batteries. I've explained this time and time again that you are the batteries that keeps everything going as it is. So with that being said, that is telling you, hey, I'm no longer going to allow someone to keep pulling from me, distracting me, deterring me from my mission, deterring me from my purpose. I'm going to stand in my power and I'm going to stand in my truth and do whatever it takes in order to stand in that autonomy or stand in that sovereignty. That energy of sovereignty is coming up for a lot of us. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think sovereignty is a great word choice, and that's really one of my missions with building these wealth codes is helping people see the world from a sovereign perspective. And a lot of that, when I think of a sovereign perspective, I think of operating from an eternal standpoint, right? When I think of eternity, I think about soul, right? So these key words that are coming up, and so actually that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you. And that's why I like working with you and talking in general, but also in a professional sense, because I'm very good at strategy. And I think the family would agree. I think very big picture, but I'm also very good at helping talk about complex topics and bringing them down to a normal level for everybody to understand. So I'm very good strategically, but when we get together, I think of mixing and meeting in the middle of mixing strategy and soul, strategy and eternal thinking, those kind of topics and mindsets, and how do they come together and mesh from a consciousness and awareness standpoint. Um, So with that being said, what I think would be great to talk about now is that genius blueprint, that report that you had created, or really we had created, but I wanted to kind of dive into that, right? Because that's going to help the family understand how to generate income. But go ahead and tell us about the genius blueprint. What is that?
Okay, so the Genius Blueprint is so divine and in alignment for right now. Um, I first want to say that I am honored to be a vessel to be able to even do this, to even have these gifts. I'm very appreciative. At first, I kind of wrestled with having these type of gifts because it's like, some people are afraid of you at that point. They think that you're going to predict something negative on their lives, or you're weird, or you're crazy, and all of those kind of things. But I'm honored that I have a an ability to be on a platform to actually share this information and share my gifts, and you guys witness it and experience it with me. So first and foremost, I have to express gratitude. So thank
And
you.
tell us about what, when you say gifts that you have, we understand from a maybe a psychic or medium standpoint. But when you think about gifts in order to talk to someone about maybe their gifts, how do you do that? What does it look like for you? Did you happen to hear me on that? Amethyst, you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, so I think we lost you for a little bit, but did you happen to hear my question?
No, I didn't. Can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, no problem. So I was saying, from a standpoint of your gifts, when I think of, I think, let me rephrase that. When the average person, I think, thinks of a psychic or a medium, their mind may go to a very specific, maybe
With a
TV
crystal
way of
ball.
thinking, right? Crystal ball, those exactly. But then when it comes to something like the Genius Blueprint, or when it comes to an individual perspective, when you're having these conversations with people, you were talking about your gifts, right? And you're very thankful to have these gifts. So from that perspective of talking to an individual, right, at that kind of level, um, how do you work with those people? How do you, because I have to imagine it's not just about predicting their future, right? It would be about talking to them on a grander level about much more of who they are, again, from an eternal standpoint.
Okay, so first things first, to go back a little bit. Um, I can give translation to each community that I'm speaking with right now. So, for those of you who are familiar with prophetess or prophet or seer, oracle, okay, those are terminologies that you can actually apply to me so you can have a better understanding or overstanding of who I am and what I do. So, I want to put that out there. So if you hear psychic medium, like what in the world, and you're thinking like someone with a wrap on their head and they have a crystal ball, that's one maybe you can consider, but that's not me. Okay, so with this ability, first of all, everyone has abilities, everyone has gifts, and that's what I want to go into as this conversation deepens. But everyone has gifts. Everyone that has a soul has intuitive abilities, intuition, right? Those who are connected to source, spirit, creator, they are able to tap in at any given moment within themselves to draw out information that they need at that given moment. Now, some of us have degrees of those type of abilities. Some of us, like me, was born, it was something ancestral as well as from past lives that I would have these abilities. Okay, and that is why I'm able to access such a large database of information, because it's just in me, not on me. Okay,
Yeah, she
and I
said it's
have this
level to this,
ability.
y'all.
So I have this ability to access this information, and the key card access to access this information. Not everybody is able to do that. Not everybody has the bandwidth to handle it. So there are certain degrees. Not trying to put it up like a hierarchy as far as who's better and all of that kind of stuff. Don't let your ego get in the way when I'm explaining this. But see it as people having certain skills that are divinely in them that they have these innate abilities, but there's also certain traits that are given in this passed down through generations to generations as well as past lives. Okay, and also look at it on a cosmic grand scheme or layout where it's like it's not just in this present moment, but you have gathered a host of or a plethora of information that has brought you into this particular point in your life right now. So I first wanted to put that out there for clarity's sake. But the purpose of the Supreme Genius Blueprint and Success Formula are basically to connect you to various versions of yourself to get said information about you. All of us have a purpose, all of us have a divine plan, and you're going through a high level masterclass in this lifetime. So this journey is here for you to experience whatever you came here to experience, whether it's here to learn how to love, forgive, to heal your ancestral DNA, to be able to be an ambassador for your family or community, to be able to, experience connection, whatever it may be, learn how to fly. Just as simple as that. You are here to experience something, and you have to be on that journey to discover what that is. So with the Supreme Genius Blueprint, you're basically tapping in to your true version as well as the future version of yourself to retrieve that said information of who you are at your core, at your soul level, where on the outside you may have certain weaknesses. You may feel like you're not good enough, but you've carried some gifts, some beautiful traits into this lifetime. And what are those? So that is what the blueprint is all about. Getting a personalized map of outlining who you are, your cosmic encoding, what you came here to do, what opportunities you have made available, what is your experience actually inviting you to do and live through. What is that? Because if you look at life as an invitation instead of something just happening to you, something you're suffering through, you can actually find that it's enjoyable, that it can be pleasurable, that it can be simplistic. It doesn't have to be a whole bunch of hoopla. And sometimes in life and through our experiences, we overcomplicate our journey because we carry in too much. And that's what happens through our process. And I'm able to go and see all the layers and peel them away. Say, yes, I see these things. Yes, I see that. I can confirm this. I see this. But I see who you really are. And who you really are is super dope and so beautiful, so precious. So let's get to that. And I help you get to that. And I call that my amethyst method. I have a framework where I'm able to break it down in a sequential order of like, hey, let's be aware, let's acknowledge, okay, now we can release and we can embody, we can expand our consciousness, and we'll be able to tap into all of who we are. That's all is what it's all about, to remember who we are. And so with the success formula, it complements that map of who you are, that architecture, that energetic design of who you are. And it's saying this is the how, this is the strategy. So your rituals, you may not like the word rituals, your day-to-day, your practical steps to actually connect and really embody that true version of yourself, that future version of yourself, and see it as not being distant, seeing that it's not disconnected. It's just layers that are building in between you and your true self, such as experiences, those calluses that you need to heal from and remove, right? Those bandages that we need to open up and let the wound breathe. So that is what the Genius Blueprint and Success Formula is all about. So excited to further discuss this.
Amazing breakdown, and I think that the Genius Blueprint, from everything that you've discussed and broken down, and really the way I see it, I think the Genius Blueprint is very, very powerful. Again, when I think of how, who I am, very good at taking those high level concepts and breaking them down. And very simply, I see the Genius Blueprint as something that is able to help you connect with your soul, that highest consciousness of yourself, that has lived many lifetimes, and be able to effectively connect with all those gifts and all those things that you've learned over your many lifetimes, right? Because literally, by definition, if you have a soul, that means that you're eternal. And if you're eternal, you would have had to have lived multiple lives, right? And so, if you can just really key in on that, focus on that reality just for a little bit, you can then sit back and say, okay, if that's the case, then why am I not connecting with that eternal side of myself to bring down all of those gifts and then using that to my advantage in this lifetime?
Right.
And so I think that is just such a powerful conversation to have, and that's why I wanted to discuss this with you and bring this on as a part of Wealth Codes, because this needs to be a part of the foundation for wealth moving forward. Um, what type of, remember, if wealth is just energy, right? That's my premise. Wealth is
Right.
just energy. Money is just energy, is all it is. Then how can you maximize all that you are to master your energy and create abundance? Right? So it's effectively, that's what you're doing here from your own standpoint with the Genius Blueprint. You're using your gifts in order to help everyone else, and everyone else flows back into you, right, with their energy or their money, right? And then they take that learning, that knowledge, and then they go boom and blossom on their own, right, and create their abundance for
Yes.
themselves. And so it's really an energetic exchange, which is what I've talked about in previous videos under Wealth Codes, an energetic exchange. But this is a powerful one. This is one that I think that if people were to take their time and sit back and really digest this information, I know it's very high level and it can be kind of overwhelming, but it also should open your mind, right? And that's the theme of my intro, right? We're hoping to open your minds and everybody's minds to a much deeper conversation that can be a game changer for your life, right?
If you
And
don't mind, I want to share a diagram that I think will be helpful to the community, to the
go for it.
collective.
Go for
Okay,
it.
great. Can you see that?
It is loading up. Okay. Yep. Now it's on the main screen.
Okay, great. So basically, I created a little diagram just to help. Some people are visual learners, right? So a lot of us believe that our higher self is literally above us, right? That is external, that is away from a distance away from us. And we're not seeing that our higher self is actually our true self. Oh, excuse me. Let me go back. Our true self. So our true self is again the part of us that is at our soul's level, our true essence of who we are, aside from anything that we've gone through in our lifetime. So if you look at this right here, there's no separation, there's no gap. But what makes it look like a gap is the habits, the patterns, the belief systems, the thoughts, the feelings, right? So these thoughts, feelings lead to beliefs, right? Because we are habitually doing it. It's ingrained in us, and some of us we're on autopilot, and we're have this so subconscious programming where it's like something that we run on the background that we are not aware of. So once you become aware of these things, then you can begin to deprogram. So you come in with a program, you got to deprogram and then reprogram yourself and reconnect with your true self. Excuse me, because a lot of our experiences kind of like put a bad taste in your mouth, right? And so those things can make you feel like there's a gap between you right here versus the version of you right there. And when you heal your mind and your emotions, because ultimately that is rooted in the experiences that you've had, because we are emotional creatures, whether you're masculine or feminine, you have emotions. Whether you suppress them or you're imbalanced where you're over expressing yourself, you're overly emotional. All of us have emotions. All of us have a soul. All of us have a mind. That's the ones who I'm speaking to. And so when you go through that process, you see all of these layers, right? This individual right here has a coat on, he has pants on, boots, a hat. I mean, think of it as a being in the season where it's wintertime, right? You're in the winter season clothing, but it's summertime. You're supposed to be wearing this, the summer clothes. But because of the layers of conditioning or the things that you have been through, it has created this baggage, okay? Because ultimately, your body is so intelligent, it's saying, hey, I need to protect myself. Hey, I need to shield myself. I have to survive. And so, on a physical level, it will manifest as hyper independence, being under or overweight, inflammation, going through isolation, being overly social because you don't want to be by yourself, right? So, is this your protection or your prison? And when you look at yourself and you look at your life and the things that you go through, that's where you're going to have to go through the work to go to the root of who you are, the core of who you are, and you have to look at yourself. And that can be uncomfortable for a lot of people, but as a guide, I'm able to help dissect it and detach from it, so it's detached from it enough so that you're not emotionally feeling like so overwhelmed that you can't make it, because it does get ugly, it does get uncomfortable. But when you ground your energy and see that you are breaking down all of those different layers to get to who you truly are, and then once you get through that, it is more ease and more flow that comes in. Okay. So I just wanted to show that visual so that people can see that sometimes we are seeing ourselves so fragmented and separated from ourselves, but really you're together, you're put together. It's just different things that kind of block you, kind of show up as energetic blockages, making you feel like there's separation and gaps.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of in that very first image that you showed, and people thinking that there's a separation. It reminds me of thinking that there's a separate, so for those that are religious and grew up in a Christian church like I did, it reminds me of the idea that you are separate from God, meaning you have no direct connection. In reality, you're always been connected. There, God's coming back. God never left. Like it's more of a you had that direct connection, and just like you pray, right? Prayer wouldn't work if there was no connection, but there is a connection, so therefore it works. There's a conversation that goes back and forth. And just a quick like interesting thing that I connected with was, to me, prayer and meditation are very similar. They're part of the conversation. Meditation is you sit back and listen, and prayer is you're talking, right? One is the listener, one is the person talking, right? And it's kind of that back and forth conversation. Um, aspect to it. Now, I thought it would be cool if we could, if I could go over. I thought the family might be interested in my genius blueprint, my supreme genius blueprint. So I'm going to put that on the screen. So
Okay.
just bear with me one second. Somebody can get a real life look, and I'm not going to show y'all everything on my report, but I do want to show what that looks like. So first off, shout out to you, Amethyst, because this looks dope. The Supreme Genius Blueprint. This
Thank
is
you.
the opening description. You get a nice little table of context so you know what you're getting. So mine came with the full Genius Blueprint, the full success formula, as well as things to commit to for my growth and final reflections from anything that I was thinking. But more specifically, I'm going to try to zoom in here. This was the section where it was like a SWOT analysis. And this is where we teamed up, right? Because you already had like a version of a Supreme Genius Blueprint that you were already doing. But of course, with my strategy mind, right, the mindset of merging logic with the spiritual, we were able to kind of work together and create this using the SWOT strategy. So the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats idea. So here's mine. And yo, I'm dope. I ain't gonna lie to you. So I got a lot of gifts. So clairvoyant, clairaudient, highly intuitive. I'm an empath and healer. And I've actually like seen a lot of these things come to pass in my life over the last several years of my own spiritual growth and awakening. Um, but so there's a lot of things that you see, I'm passionate. If you know me, you would know that. I'm very studious. I'm financially literate. I care about the people, right? If I'm going to do something, I have to actually care about it. And all these things, they really make sense. But it's not just about, some of the aspects of things that are on the surface, right? Those that have known me for a long time, but there's that deep level. There's the soul level, right? So strong bond with my ancestors, my cosmic guides, strong bond to the plants out there because that is also a part of creation, right? And so that's how you kind of know when somebody's thinking on that higher level of consciousness and high vibration, they see the God that's in everything. And so me tapping into that, it's actually grown. It's not just her putting it on paper. I've actually experienced this too, and that's why I'm highlighting it. You might remember one of my Game of Life episodes where I interviewed someone who remembered her lifetime as a dragon. Well, I have my own dragon aspects, so I thought that was cool and powerful. Again, not just she channeled that and created that on the report for me, but also I've started to have my own experiences with that as again I'm integrating with that soul level aspect of me that has lived many lifetimes, right? So that includes as a dragon or as multiple dragons, whatever you want to say. Um, and so I want to pause right there because this is where you may have heard me famously say, um, quit limiting the creator, meaning quit limiting God or source. This idea that you've only ever been a human. How much sense does that actually make? If you have a soul, your soul is just a ball of energy. It can incarnate into whatever being it wants to, right? So the perspective of just being a human being is a very limited perspective, and I'm challenging us to really reconsider the truth aspect of that. How true is that? The idea that we should only look at things through the lens of a human being. I'm just going to really sit that there and allow people to think about that, to meditate on that. Um, and so I've even had a past life as a wizard. I thought that was cool because I've always loved the idea of magic and sci-fi and all those kind of things. And so I highlight that family because who are you? Right? There's things to know about yourself, and you may know a lot of your strengths. You might be like, I know myself, and that's great. Nobody's telling you that you don't. But the question is, do you remember all that you are? Because I think that can be a very powerful thing for you to bring into this lifetime and this reality. So again, we're talking about wealth codes, right? And so you can reshape your life, utilize some of these gifts that you have and that you've built over many lifetimes that you can bring down here and use to manifest creations here in the physical. But it's not just about your strengths, right? And I have some weaknesses. Again, if you know me, I can be very impatient. I know I can. That's pure fact. I can be unorganized. Also, pure fact. I call it organized chaos, but unorganized nonetheless, right? Um, I can be forgetful on some things that I think are petty, right? That don't matter as much. But probably why I have a strong core memory. Things that I think matter, I'm on it, and I won't forget it, especially when I see and understand the value of those things. So that's just a few um, weaknesses. I want to transition to opportunities though, as well as threats. See, this is like to me the meat and potatoes of talking about the genius blueprint. The meat and potatoes of talking about how you integrate this with wealth codes. Because now we're talking about building, right? Because we can talk about strengths and weaknesses and who you are, but we're talking about building for the future. How do you move forward? Well, moving forward, not only do you not have to have a strong foundation, understanding your strengths and weaknesses, right? If you're building a house, you got to have that foundation. But then also, how do you build on top of that is going to be based on your opportunities that you have coming down the pipeline. It's going to be based on seeing the threats that could slow you down or stop you, and then having the mental fortitude to get beyond that. Um,
Create those
so let's
workarounds.
Yes, those workarounds, exactly. And so, for example, my opportunities, I have a strong bond with my guardian angels, my spirit guides. I have an ancestral bloodline that is very ancient, very powerful, very important. Um, I am a very good marketing strategist, right? So even this having this conversation and talking about these things and helping you think big picture about it is something that I'm not afraid to do, and I embrace that. I'm very good at being a bridge, right, in networks, so connecting things. Um, my point is using my strengths, using my weaknesses in order to cultivate the path of my reality that I want to operate in, right? That I want to grow. And so that's a great thing. That's a powerful thing. Don't just look at what I'm showing you as, for me, don't just look at that as, oh, well, that's cool for you, Dex. It's like, no, I'm trying to get you to see one perspective, which is just my perspective on how growth and wealth can be built. But frankly,
Exactly.
you are your own soul that is here on your own mission with your own purpose that is destined for wealth, destined for abundance. The question is, how did you do it? How do you want to do it? Who are you? Right? Um, and I wanted to highlight, lastly, here, something I thought you said was powerful, which is workarounds. That's what when I think about threats, don't look at threats, be in the right mindset. This is what's called a growth mindset. See, because I can look at these threats and I could get disappointed and say, you know what, there's no reason for me to have a conversation with Amethyst
Exactly.
in front of everybody. There's no reason for me to um, step away from a career that I had built and done all these things to go out here and help the masses, help the people understand how wealth really works. There's no reason. There's too many threats, right? But no, there's workarounds. There's other ways to look at it. In the growth mindset, you don't just get stopped at first your first thing of struggle, right? You don't struggle is not a reason to stop. Look at it as that's how you gain wisdom. So threats can be a good thing, even though they can be a bad thing. They are not by default a bad thing. And so for me, like stretch often. That means, if I don't stretch, I'm gonna have buildup. I'm gonna have muscles that are not elastic, that cannot move. That's if I don't do it. The
Right.
other way I can look at it is an opportunity. I can do it and then I will be great, right? My muscles
Exactly.
will be fine. I could stay unorganized. I talked about the organization things here, um, right here. I talked about that was a weakness, but it can also be a strength if I was to think of it from the right mindset, right? I can maybe
Exactly.
hire an assistant that can help with my organization, right? And so these are all things. Maybe somebody helps me stay organized while I go repurpose my energy doing things that I love to do, right? That's the workaround
Exactly.
that you talked about. And so I want to talk about these things. I, again, don't want to go through all this because it's a lot. And you'll see, family, when you get your report, it can be a lot of things that you need to do, to work on, to consider, because you are a lot. If you're eternal, that means that there's a lot of things that you have experienced, a lot of things that are attached to you, associated with you, with being you. And so I thought that was a very powerful thing to do for the family, to see just what a genius blueprint really means and looks like, because you can use these things that you've never consciously thought of, and frankly, that you've forgotten when you got down here into this lifetime. But really, it's time to remember who you are. I think that right there is a great segue to closing this out, as far as me showing you that genius blueprint. And it's dope. There's a lot more. She goes over your purpose.
Yeah.
She goes over your some key messages for you. Um, in fact, I'm gonna put that back on the screen so you can just take a look at that. Because she does more than just the SWOT analysis. Let me put
Yeah,
that
I
back on.
actually go into like key takeaways because I know it's a lot of information. It's not something that you should just skim over. Break it up into bite-sized chunks. That it's digestible for you. So you get your key points, your overview. You actually get your seasons, okay? Because there's cycles. Everything that is natural operates in seasons. So, Maybe I always give this example. Maybe the good
Let me
idea
pull
that
up
you
the
came
season.
up with is not working because it's not divine timing. It's not in alignment. Maybe you have to work on some things. Maybe you need to rest. Maybe, retreat and really rejuvenate and pour into yourself a little bit more. Because, when we are creating, when you're in the process of creation, you are using energy. And also, you have to master your energy as well as being able to receive. Okay? To receive those things, you have to have the capacity and the openness and willingness to receive. And sometimes with our nervous system and with our overall like thought process on different things, we get so nervous and overworked and burnt out that we're operating out of alignment with our energetic design. Okay, all of us came with the meat suit and avatar, and unfortunately there are some shortcomings to those things, right? But you have workarounds. You can create systems. You can hire. You can outsource. Not necessarily your energy, but those things that you need help with. Or you can learn. You can acquire a skill set that will help you to adjust. But all of the things that are within your blueprint that you may say, that's not good, or I don't like this or that, see those as potentials. They don't have to happen. There are potential blind spots. There are potential things that you may trip on if you're not aware or conscious of it. But wouldn't you want to be aware so that you don't, so you can avoid some things? Wouldn't you want to be in the most advantageous position? Wouldn't you want to accomplish your dreams, your aspirations, and have goals set up and you're actually checking them off your list? Seeing those milestones, living your best life, being in the best energy and vibration. So you have to do certain things to create that and hold it. So, with that being said, within the Genius Blueprint, it's not just talking about all spiritual stuff. This is energy. So, we're also talking about your overall wellness. Maybe there's some things that you may be eating that are not good with your energy, that may be in conflict with your energetic design. Maybe there is a habit that you're currently doing that is not helping you be the best version of yourself or the best expression of yourself. It's like not to look at it as something picking you apart, but seeing as it as actually opening up the book of you
Yeah.
and revealing all of your makeup, all your design. When you look at architecture, the blueprints, they're very detailed, right?
Yep.
There's
Yep.
a lot of details as far as the formalities of measurements, right? The materials is going to come down later on the road, but the actual blueprint is the details of the measurements and the levels that may be involved, or the size of a room, or is there a door or a window, or and all these kind of things is very complex. Well, you are too. You have a lot of details. So, in order to honor that, you have something like the Genius Blueprint to show you that design is then is to your advantage to actually live it. So then you're not going around feeling like you have to stress out on your financials. You feeling like just as something goes down in the market, then you go down, right? It's not saying being in a position where you're saying, I am the leader, I am the CEO of my life, and I know my path and I know who I am, and I can tap into any aspect of myself to get said information because you are this chamber of information, so intelligent, so brilliantly made. And that's all it is appreciating you. The success formula is the how, right? The cycle is the season in your blueprint is the when and who, what, the where's probably, but the how, the practicality behind it is your success formula. So again, I appreciate you even sharing your genius blueprint because that's being transparent and vulnerable. You know what I mean? But just so that the people can actually see what it is.
Absolutely. And I stayed right here for a reason. I um, thought this one was very important. That line about your cosmic coded message and that consciousness resonance. When we think of Christ, a lot of us think of just one person, but I would argue and ask people to consider that consciousness of Christ, that consciousness of self, that consciousness of understanding you are the child of the Most High, the child of the Creator, the child of God. And so it's no accident that when Christ was here, Christ was able to turn water into wine, right? And when you think about that literal idea of turning water to wine, you would have to see the God in the water in order to turn it to wine, right? You'd have to see the God in your reality, the God in all of reality, in order to do those kind of things. And so I would challenge people just to consider, when you read the Bible, when you read these different spiritual texts, to think from that kind of mindset, that kind of Christ consciousness level, that knowledge of self level, that if you have a soul, you are so much more than just a human being. And that's what I want to kind of key in on here. Now, the other thing is, you had talked about the success formula, right? And you did build me a success formula. I thought that was very cool. I don't want to stay on it too long because, again, it's just a lot of information. It can be information
Yeah.
overload, and we've already been on this conversation for quite a while, for over 45 minutes. But
Well,
just
time
you're gonna get
flies.
some major themes and key points. I thought that was amazing. That was beautiful. Talking about how to complete activations, how to work on your spiritual gifts. So, right. So, I think one of the things that I thought was important to note in this conversation is when you broke down your genius blueprint, like you said, it's not just the who, but the how. You're giving people the actual work to do to see these things through fruition, to actually bring these gifts into to skills, right? Taking them from talent, because it's one thing to be talented. Talented means you
Right.
you have all these gifts, but you haven't developed them. So you're taking people from a talent to a skill, and I think that's important. That's frankly the most important, right? It's one thing to talk about it, but be about it. Go be about it.
Right.
And that's what that successful one is doing. And I thought that was just very, very cool. You're giving those daily habits and routines. Um, so helping people really transform, right? Go from being into one mindset over to a whole nother reality and how they want to shift it. Because you're not telling people what they have to do, you're telling people what they can do. And so giving people their morning routines or rituals, whatever you want to say, things that you do that you're passionate about, and you make sure that you do for you, right? Because that's ultimately what a ritual is: things that you do consistently that is going to impact your reality, right?
Right.
So morning, midday, evening, right? Yeah, I think that was just so cool for people to, definitely for me to see, but I think cool for everybody to see, because that's what you're going to get when you get this sort of report about not only yourself, but about how you thrive in your own greatness effectively. Um,
Yes.
so let me take that off the screen.
I won't put this out there too. Faith without works is dead.
That's a great point.
So we can have a ton of faith and belief in oneself and in God and all of that, and that's good. But you have to have the discipline. You have to show up. You have to put in the effort. You have to be consistent. And your consistency level may be different from another. Okay, so that's the beauty of learning your design and knowing thyself. Is when you truly understand your design, your makeup, you'll be able to use your energy in the most opportune way.
I couldn't
Oh,
agree
I forgot to
more.
mention the one-on-one decoding session too, that they get with me. So they just don't get the blueprint. They actually get a one-on-one with me to go over it and ask any questions and get any additional insight.
Well, that's dope, and that's pretty important to mention, right? So they're getting the genius blueprint, the blueprint of who they are, right?
Right.
They're getting the success formula, basically how to develop the talent that they have, and they're getting the one-on-one with you to actually go over everything, break it down, and make sure they fully understand what they're looking at.
Exactly.
I mean, sounds pretty good to me. Um, what I love most about the entire report is it's almost like a cheat code to infinite energy, right? To a cheat code to understanding all that you are, and then you can use that to insert it in your grand master plan, to creating wealth. And that's where I want to start wrapping this up, from a conversation standpoint, and allow the family to think, and to go and reflect. Because remember, bringing this back full circle, we're talking about building your wealth in this new world where the old foundation is dying off. The idea that we're going to be able to rely on corporations and retirement plans that are no longer existing in the way that we're used to. No social security anymore, no pension, all these kind of things. We're going to have to get creative in how we build wealth.
Exactly.
The idea of going the traditional route, going to college and getting into all of this debt to hopefully get a job. I read a stat, the other day, it was yesterday, it was either today or yesterday, where the college graduates from 2024, there was about maybe 40% of them that got hired in the, field that they graduated with. So
Oh,
think
wow.
about how low that is, right? So if
Yeah.
you had 10 graduates, four of them effectively got hired to do what they're going to school for. And if you're not getting hired to do what you're going to school for, all you did, if you even got hired, was just go get a job. So how long are you going to last in that job? That's not even what you want to do. That's not what you're here to do. You're just going to do something just to say you have something.
Right.
That's not sustainable. That's not going to ever be a way where it trends towards success long term. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't go get a job to be able to make ends meet to pay bills. But what it does show that is that moving forward, and especially after AI continues to replace, these 300 million jobs that Goldman Sachs reported, right? That's not Dex talking. That's the big wigs, the investment bankers, the people that are actually spreading out the money, spending the money, etc. They're telling you that there's a wave coming, and so we have to get creative. And my suggestion is to work on that eternal side of you and turn those talents into skills in order to create your abundance. And that's what I wanted to do with this conversation, really with the wealth conversations overall. But I thought that that was a great kind of segue to wrap up this
Yeah.
entire conversation, because that's the importance. It's not just about us trying to be right, it's trying to give you great solutions, and merge that logic with the spiritual so you see the bigger picture of how you're going to do it, right? The end, it's not all lost. It's not a scenario where we're all just going to be struggling out here. You don't have to be. You were made to be wealthy, right? And I think that's so powerful. So, Amethyst, I want to thank you. And before I let you go, I think I would be remiss if I didn't, ask you, maybe one little sneak peek of 2026, or any themes or, predictions that you want to make just as we close out and as you think about moving forward. What do you think the people should know at this time?
Um, Nothing necessarily futuristic right now, but I do want to give this information that I've been guided to. And it's about seeing this as this pressure that we're experiencing in the collective, the depression, the feeling burnt out, the feeling like doom and gloom or whatnot, that is actually not supposed to pressurize you to the point of feeling hopeless, but it's pushing you. It's actually an energetic split. There's several that have occurred, but it's pushing you into the position where you need to be. Seeing that you are the battery, as I mentioned before, unplugging and detaching from those particular sources, or not sources, but I want to say siphoners, those things that are draining your life force, so that you can be creative. Use those gifts, use those talents, use those resources to actually be in your purpose, to actually create systems in place so that you never experience any downturn again, and that you are in the driver's seat and being more empowered, as far as your current position. Learning how to garden, okay, get back to those skills that we've lost over time, like passing down herbs, concoctions, or passing down remedies from from the old folk. Like, we need that information, that wisdom. And some of us are going back to those roots. But even having your own land, if you can, like being in the city is not where it's at. I mean, I know it's convenient. It may feel posh or like, cool or whatever. But seeing yourself being more self sufficient, being the leader in your home, like going in and not only just your physical dwelling, but also your spirit, your energy, like time to clean house. And it's not a thing as far as thinking like, oh, something bad is going to happen again. But these have been warnings leading up. There's been warnings, like several of them, for us to get more self-sufficient, to be more proactive, to be able to be more in the standing of I'm the final authority. Actually, like, I'm not going to allow these things to happen to me. I'm actually going to prevent these things from happening to me. And so that is what it's doing. It's seeing that we need when they're doing this, we need to go this way. And that's the energy. So I don't want y'all to like really think of this as a negative thing. Yes, it may be uncomfortable, but it's meant for you to finally make those decisions that have been kind of like pushing along, kicking the can. And now it's time to make those decisions, important decisions, not only for you, but that affects generations thereafter. So that's what I leave with.
Okay, where can the family find you?
Okay, so I have a website in alignmentministries.com. I also have my IG. My IG is I am underscore amethyst underscore goddess. And I have a link in bio. So say for instance, you go to any of those links, you can actually be directed to purchasing your own Supreme Genius Blueprint, being able to book a one-on-one with me. If you need some energy clearing, like if you have blockages or you need to ground yourself and you need help with that, I can actually help you. So there's numerous avenues that you can reach me.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining for the conversation. It's been a real pleasure. I know that it's been very powerful. That's for sure. Um, with that being said, family, real quick, something for you to reflect on before we go, which is a very simple question of, do you really know your architecture of your genius? Do you know your architecture? Do you know how you're made? Um, if you can't answer that question, maybe it's time to start thinking about that. Maybe it's time to start reflecting and going into meditation about what that means for you. Maybe it's time to reach out to Amethyst and have a conversation. Maybe it's time to reach out to me. Maybe it's time to reach out to the higher version of yourself, right? To just you. Sit down with yourself. But either way, we're at a time where it is time to start having those more difficult conversations within self, in order to master yourself. And that's where I'll leave it. Thank you so much for being here, Amethyst. Thank you for being here. I really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it, really appreciated it. And family, you can't win the new game by playing the old rules. All right. I'm going to holler at y'all. I love y'all. Peace.
Take care.